meet with people from the offices that are represented here to ask questions about how they can best engage with the Army. And we found those sessions to be great, especially when it's not one-on-one necessarily, but when we get all the small businesses together so they can hear each other's questions, and then they maybe even have answers for each other that we don't necessarily have the best answers for. So to gather everyone together that may have questions from the small business community, be candid and be frank and ask the questions that have been either plaguing you or that you just don't know how to do for the next step that you're trying to do and develop your technologies. We found that was a lot of positive feedback on making that availability at each of our pitch days. So with here, where we've gathered the semifinalists and the finalists at this venue, we wanted to try to do it as well. So the goal of this session is really just going to have our panelists introduce themselves and then open it up to questions from you all and hope that we can get some good dialogue going. At the front table over there, ASALT, and I'm using an acronym, which we're not supposed to do, but it's such a long title, but the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Acquisition, Logistics, and Technology, who sponsors this competition, has put together a pamphlet and trying to consolidate for all of you in a nice, easy to carry, easy to read pamphlet, the opportunities that are available through the Army to engage with us from whether you be from small business, large business, or academic institutions, all the ways that you can engage with the Army. It has contact information in here. It's a great reference. They're sitting on the front table. Really encourage you to grab one, bring a bunch back for your colleagues and other people that you think may benefit from it on your way out today. And with that, I want to turn it to our panelists to just introduce themselves and where they come from, and then we open it up to all of you, hopefully for the questions that you have. So.
Good morning. So I'm Wendy Leonard, and I'm with the Combat Capabilities Development Command, so CCDC, Army Research Laboratory, and so I run ARL's Open Campus program. And so really what Open Campus is a program that is trying to expand our relationships with small businesses, industry, and academia to have an S&T partnership to build an ecosystem that'll enhance discovery and innovation. So where I'm not a funding program, I am a collaborative program. So I bring S&T researchers and an opportunity to be greened in what Army problems are, to have access to Army researchers, equipment that's in laboratories that you may or may not already have. And so there's a lot of opportunities to do collaborative research through partnerships. The way we primarily do that is through cooperative research and development agreements and educational partnership agreements. I do have a quick question, because Zeke says it's fair that we ask questions too to get everyone warmed up. So I recognize a lot of faces, and so if you've participated in the X-Tech search competitions, during the lunch sessions of when you did your pitches, you also had a similar session like this. So I am curious, for anybody that's here that is a small company that has not previously participated in an X-Tech search competition, can you raise your hand just so I have an awareness of that? Okay, great, so you're familiar with us. All right, great, Johnny.
Hi, my name is Johnny Shockley. I work for the U.S. Army Engineer Research and Development Center. We are a laboratory that specializes in infrastructure, and what I am is a technology transfer officer. So Wendy has her open campus days, and the tech transfer officers, there's one at each laboratory in the Army. We would be the one to formalize the agreement to do collaborative research, the educational partnerships. We have multiple authorities, and under those authorities we can then enter into collaborative research agreements with you. We also work with our IP Patent Council, so if you're a small business and you're bringing IP to us, we negotiate those kinds of things into our agreements so that there's equitable apportionment of those. We have, with our authorities, a cooperative research and development agreement. It's used to perform a collaborative R&D with academia, industry, not-for-profits, and non-federal government parties. We also do license agreements so that once your technology is developed, you have an invention. We work with patent license agreements, software license agreements, and things like that. We have commercial test agreements, so you have your technology and you may need it tested. It's a reimbursable basis. So you could come to our laboratory if they have a certain piece of equipment that you would like to improve your technology on. You can use those resources. As I said, each laboratory has a tech transfer officer. We're kind of the one touch to get into the laboratory if you don't know how to reach someone. We're pretty familiar with the depth and the breadth of the programs. We know the different program areas, and we can usually get you to the right discipline specialist to help you either work a CRADA or get the information you're looking for.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Gaina Malcolm Packnett, and I'm a program manager at Army Office of Small Business Programs. There, I'm responsible for the Mentor Protege program, the Sitter program, as well as workforce development and HBCU MI. At the Army Office of Small Business, we don't get to do all the cool stuff. Basically, all we do, we advocate, we educate, and we inform small businesses. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. So my name is Fatima Diallo. I work for the Army Contracting Command. I'm a contracting officer and division chief. So my contracting shop employs about 60 plus contracting professionals, and we're responsible for cradle to grave contracting. So we are responsible for executing SBIR contracts, BAAs, commercial, non-commercial contracts, that's FAR Part 15 and 13 base contracts, and we do construction type contracts as well. So anything that we get as far as if our mission partners are interested in it comes through our contracting shops, we'll help host industry days, put out sources, SOTs, do the negotiations on the contracts, and then do administrations of the contracts as well. So that all comes through my contracting office.
So you've had an opportunity to meet us before, or representatives in similar fields at the different sites where you've done your pitch events, and we've been accessible here today. So this is really your opportunity as you've continued through the processes to ask some questions for us. If you feel that your question is very specific, you will be around the event floor all afternoon, so you can certainly grab us at any time. So with that, we open up the floor to you.
Hi, hello, can you hear me? All right, hi, I'm Anna, and we're working on a piece of technology that would be integrated in a vehicle that the military would be interested in. And it's always been an area of a question mark for me when seeing how do you integrate yourself into the supply chain, for example, for the next generation combat vehicle.
You want to take that one, or?
So you can find the equivalent discipline specialists, technology engineers in the command that does mobility type actions, and work with them. We can help you in the tech transfer office to find someone that's would be doing research in that particular area or working in that mission area, and see if they would want to do a CRADA, or maybe you could submit a white paper under our broad agency announcement, kind of explaining what your technology is and does and how it relates to the mission area that we're looking for. I would say that what I tell a lot of people is that they may have a great technology. You need to kind of convert your white paper to the mission related area. I work with a lot of people in universities. I know they have a technology that we can use, but they are their nomenclature doesn't follow what the mission support area would be. We could help you, assist you in making sure that you get with someone to understand, and so that your white paper meets the needs and could be evaluated effectively. I hope that answers your question.
So Anna, if I was going to continue on your particular question, what I would say is that there's many different entrances into the laboratories and into the system. And so there's just not one door into the Army. So since I met you, I think, in Chicago, so if I think about an example, so I represent the Army Research Laboratory, and through ARL's Open Campus, we have a website where you can actually find research partners. So if you're working in propulsion technologies or network technologies or whatever that is, you could find actually a partner that does it at the research level at a very early TRL, a technology readiness level. And again, the links to that, I'm around, and I'll give you a card that'll take you directly to the Open Campus website, but they're also in this document on page 13 and 14. Since you are talking that your area that you're working in is going to go into vehicles, then if you went to page 12 of this document, to me, I think that other contact area where another door would be the Ground Vehicle Systems Center. And so that's the group that was formerly known as TARDAC up in Warren, Michigan. And so there's some contact informations into the tech transfer area, but those are some of the ones where I would be paying attention to broad agency announcements and calls for technologies and that sort of stuff. If we continue further, there's also these combined functional teams, and so they also work in different areas. And so for what your areas that you're working, you're going to pay attention to the language for the next generation combat vehicles. And so you have doors along the way, and then through these Army relationships that you're forming, I think you can also get into the project managers and the PEO offices as well.
Anna, to also add, just to ask you a question, have you ever checked out our small business innovation research, the Army? Have you looked at that? Did you ever think about submitting a white paper or proposal for phase 1? So you have done that. That's great, because I was going to recommend that, because it's one of the topic areas for our SIBR program is improving ground vehicles and maneuverability. So that might kind of fall in line with you guys, what you guys are doing. So would definitely recommend submitting a white paper for that, and hopefully you'll get an invitation to actually submit a proposal, and then that would open the door to allow for a phase 1 award, phase 2, and then onwards.
I would also add that if you haven't looked at the specific laboratory broad agency announcement, there are hundreds of pages, and the technical engineering specialists write a paragraph of what their research is. So I know it's a arduous thing to go through, but you could find the specialist that most closely matches what your research area would be.
Following on about the broad agency announcements, I recognize, and across the Army, we recognize that your time is as valuable as our time. So do I think for a broad agency announcement that your first recommendation is to lock yourself in the house over the weekend and write a brand new proposal? That's not how I would recommend it. I would say that you look at that contact information and you make contact with a small abstract to start that dialogue, to figure out if there's current money in that. It is a funding opportunity, and at different times in the year there's current funding and not. And so sometimes if they say, I'm listening to your ideas and that fits an immediate need I have, then you should go ahead and then pursue the proposal at that time. I recognize what the cost is on you to keep competing for money. So through the broad agency announcement, I do recommend phone calls and short abstracts as that gets started, so you can get some feedback and then pitch your proposal.
Hi, I wanted to find out, like, when we, there is a lot of information online, like, you get pages and pages to read and figure out what it is. And yet, when we try to contact the person and written there, usually we don't get to contact them somehow. Is there a better way than the phone or the email? Is there like webinars you conduct or something that helps us to get in touch with the people? Because sometimes trying to figure out whether there's a good fit is really very hard. It seems like a lot to just even figure out before you apply. And put in all that work to do that job. I mean, Tech Search was kind of amazing one where you really applied and got back, and it was like, wow. this really happens. So that's the kind of things I was trying to figure out.
So I will still say that I feel that the processes are still arduous. We recognize that there's a lot of work related to that. So I think everybody's cases are different, and so there's different doors to go in. So I do think that there is some part where sometimes every door that you knock on will not be a success. I apologize in advance if you get a non-responsive answer. We're not trying to do that. I do feel across the Army there is a great respect and motivation for collaboration and partnership and using innovative technologies to get to the solutions today and tomorrow. So I hope some of those things are improving. I hope that through things like X-Tech Search, that these kind of technologies are also forcing the government side to be as responsive as we're asking you to be as well. I hope, since the audience is principally X-Tech Search participants, that you realize throughout your competition that you have met people at the research laboratory benches, you have met people in the development centers, you have met people in the user communities, and across that I think you've gotten a fair amount of exposures. I hope the days that you have not been here on this part of the carpet, that you have been walking across the gamut of opportunities through these companies. And again, sometimes that is a needle in a haystack. And again, it's part of that homework of finding what I consider the bazinga. It's like a Match.com. Not all first dates are going to relate in a marriage. But again, effort on both sides. From the Army Research Laboratory side, on the early research, we do often host open campus, open houses. And so it is a free event that's held at our laboratory. We invite a couple keynote speakers, usually to help green the audience about what the priorities are and to give you access to Army leadership so you can ask direct questions and hear their thoughts on and the vision of where the Army is going. But then after that, during that 2-day event, it's poster sessions and tours. So you get to go inside and see Army laboratories because, again, maybe in the conduct of your work, you're looking for somebody that has a scanning electron microscope, or you're looking for somebody that has a light gas gun. And so it's an opportunity to find facilities, but it's also a time to talk one-on-one with researchers. Because I am connected to Zeke, the beauty of that is when we do our next open campus open house, which I'm thinking is going to be in the spring time frame of 2020, I would expect that you're going to get an email inviting you to consider coming to that event. And again, that's on the early side, but we do get a lot of other folks. And while you're there, part of being part of an ecosystem is just not to talk to the Army Research Laboratory researchers, but everybody else who is there as well. Because even through this event, you might have found a small business partner or a big industry partner or somebody else that's interested. And so through that, the other people that attend that event too are potential benefits for you as well.
We also have a network of partnership intermediaries. They help, we have one, ERDICWorks. There are several. TechLink is one that all DoD laboratories sponsor and work with. And they too are our agents to help you find the right people. So you can use those as well. They're very familiar across the laboratory system with people and technologies. We have innovation days regionally. So you could come and just like open campus in the Corps, we have innovation days. And I even learn a lot just by new researchers that are coming online or working for us. So it's a good opportunity to do one-on-one and go visit their laboratories as well.
Question for you, sorry. I'm assuming when you're looking at this information, and this is for the lady who asked the question, I'm assuming when you pull this information, the information you're talking about, you're pulling it from FedBizOps. Is that where you're getting it from? Okay. My suggestion to you is typically look at sources sought, it's not as long as an official request for proposal or request for quote. It's usually a one-pager that says, hey, we are looking for a technology, or we're looking for services in this type of area, and we're looking for maybe a small business to do it. Can you please send us a 1 or 2 page capability briefing that tells us that you're able to do the type of work that we're looking at? Based on the sources sought that's posted, we put together a list of potential sources. And if we look at your capability and it matches what we're trying to do, we'll put you on that list of sources. And when we post a solicitation requesting a proposal or a quote for a certain technology or system or equipment, we'll send you an email as well, like, hey, you expressed interest in this technology or in this request for proposal, and we read your capabilities briefing and we think this is good for you. Can you go ahead and submit a proposal or a quote? At that point, you'll have information for a point of contact, whether it's a contracting officer or contract specialist, and you can ask them any questions you have, like, hey, you posted this, but your request for proposal is really confusing. I don't understand your salience, or I don't understand your PWS. Can you clarify this? And typically that individual will go back and answer your questions. And not only answer your questions, if you require, let's say, an extension to this solicitation because it's just too much information and you can't get it together in 10, 15, or 30 days, you could request that. They'll answer your questions, not only answer it, provide an extension if it's needed, if we omitted any information, and also post the responses to those questions online so other people have access to that as well. And also take advantage, like sources sought synopsis will ask you for capabilities briefing, or they'll also invite you to come out for an industry day. Like, we're looking for companies that can do this. We're hosting an industry day on this date to kind of present to you guys the environment, or to present to you guys what we're looking for. I encourage you guys to also attend those as well, because they'll put together a list of sources that they're going to reach out to directly to allow, when a solicitation or proposal is posted, to allow you guys to submit your bids. Sources sought is what it's called, and that's typically because we don't know who's out there. We're trying to do market research to generate potentials as to, should we go small business set aside for this? Is it full and open competition? And our acquisition strategy usually starts from that sources sought document to develop a path forward to execute the actual procurement of what we're looking for. Yes, FedBizOps. So if you search sources sought, a bunch of them will come up, and it's just the government inquiring with industry. We're looking for this. We don't know who can do it. If you're interested, send us your capabilities briefing.
So I'm not sure who this is for, but are there any citizenship or immigration status issues that employers need to know about when working with the Army?
Information like that will typically be listed in the solicitation. It'll tell you whether you have to be a U.S. citizen or what is required to do it. Usually for commercial like products, no. But if it's services that requires access to government installations and things of that sort, the solicitation itself will tell you what's required for those employees.
So going further on that, on the Army Research Laboratories Open Campus, we do personnel exchanges where people can actually sit, researchers can sit within our laboratories, and we can send our researchers to sit outside of our laboratories. So we've worked really hard to make open areas within our campuses, so including foreign nationals, that they can be within the site. Anybody who was going to be on our installations or on our campuses would still go under a background check, and if they were unfavorable, then they would not necessarily be allowed, but we can actually partner with foreign nationals of almost all countries.
I would like to mention on the FedBizOps, you can actually register and receive notifications. So I do that. If there's technology areas we're interested in, I will get emails saying there's a request for quotes or a request for information. So it's nice to do that so you don't have to go visit, but there's a lot of automation tools out there that allow that to happen.
Another door that you may want to explore as well, getting into the commands, is your small business professionals that are located with all the commands. So they work very closely with the individuals, so they can provide you some assistance in that area as well.
Absolutely. I think that's a great recommendation. Typically when my office, if we don't know a route that we would like to go, if we're trying to set something aside for small business, we typically contact our small business representative and ask them, this is what we're looking for. Do you have any ideas, companies that are in this field that would be able to help us? And they give us a list of companies. Hey, we have these companies. I think they would be great companies for you. And we would reach out to those companies directly to gather capabilities, briefings, or additional information that would help tailor our requirement. Questions? These are great.
Question on the SBIR program. So I understand. Can we ask that? Question on the SBIR program. What are the timelines? If you can help us educate us about, so there's a deadline. We submit the pitch. I think now the format is you submit a 15-slide PPT, guess, and then you are awarded $50,000. That's looks like it's many agencies are doing that or starting to do that. But what's the timeline for that? In terms of when the awards are decided, how quickly the money comes through, and then what are the future phases? Is that pre-phase one or is that phase one? And then what are the phase ones, phase twos? Because the phase ones in the past used to be $120,000 or $150,000, but now I think there's some changes in that. So any insights into that? Thank you.
No insight in regards to as far as like when the money is available, because that's not my side of the house, but I can tell you like the phase ones has different cycles in which it's open so that you can submit your solicitation. And currently phase ones are capped at $100,000. And I'm assuming the process that you're talking about the one page and the PowerPoints is kind of like gatekeepers to not, I guess, waste your time in putting together a 30-page proposal with an Excel document to help you guys save your money and not putting all that effort into putting together a proposal that we're not interested in or doesn't line up with the mission, what we're looking for. We do those white papers or those PowerPoints, at which point if we are interested, we'll let you know, hey, this is interesting, this is an interesting subject, go ahead and prepare a proposal. You prepare a proposal, and the SBIR posting itself will kind of give you the criterias in which you need to follow. I think it's like for a phase one, it's 30 pages. You have to have your costing information in there. Once you submit that, if you get the phase one, phase one award, that opens the gate to go into phase two, phase three. So you can only submit a phase two award if you have a phase one award, and all that information is in the actual SBIR posting itself. But with regards to when the money is available, how long does it take to make a decision, that information I wouldn't have from a contracting officer perspective.
More recently, like it's already online, like an October 23rd deadline for an Air Force SBIR, but it's like a 15-slide PPT for $50,000.
Right.
Is that be considered a phase one or is it a pre-phase one?
So every Army does theirs a little bit differently. So Army phase one has 3 submission cycles, and that's capped at $100,000. I don't know. You said this was for the Air Force?
Yeah, and there's Navy also has a SBIR thing.
Yeah.
Same concept, but $50K.
$15K.
$50,000.
It's the same program. It's the same program, but the funding is different. With the Army SBIR 19.2, the phase 1 and 2 maximum is $167 for phase 1 and $1.1 million for phase 2. And this is on the SBIR website, the Army SBIR website. You can go in and it'll give you the dollar values.
Thank you.
So again, I really like this handout.
Yeah.
I love it, I love it, I love it. And on page 5 is the Army SBIR process. And so it includes the updated schedule for the new cycle. So the pre-release of the solicitation will be on 26 November of this year. It'll open on 8 January and it closes on 12 February. And so that cycle is in this book, and it'll have the links to those pages, what the cycles look like, again, on whether it is the feasibility study moving on to phase 2 about the full R&D effort, and again, the late stage SIBRs that is the commercialization effort. So again, this, to me, if it's not on your desk, I would say you didn't take home the best thing about this conference. I'm a broken record on that.
Hi, so I have a, is this on? Testing. Hi, so I have a question on, so we're a small business creating new development, new technology for ground vehicles. We deal in noise reduction, and what we found is when we try to do noise reduction, there's always a requirement that's kind of set. And for us to improve that requirement, there's no pull from the Army because the requirement's set, and we don't understand how do we bring the noise levels down inside of the vehicles. Do we have to engage with TRADOC, or do we engage with the OEM, get them to pitch it to the government that way? How does a small business make an impact inside of a vehicle, which is a lot different situation than a commercial market where the end user is the buyer? That happens. The vehicles are quiet. However, the vehicles, there's something there where there's a requirement that is a threshold.
Are you going to take that?
Yeah. You can, in situations like that, you can bring that
Can't
to
hear you.
AFC, FCC. I'm Nell Grant, and I'm part of that requirement. You can bring that to our shop. We can help you with that as far as looking at requirements for
Nell's been sitting at the front table, so you can grab him throughout the session as well.
No more questions for us? I mean, this is your opportunity to ask anything that you have.
Can you explain the difference between an RFI and sources sought, and if there's an advantage going one versus the other? Should we do both when we see those announcements?
RFI and sources sought are practically the same thing. Usually request for information is used when it's like non-commercial services, is when we call it an RFI, and sometimes some agencies you call it sources sought when it's like a commercial service for the most part, but we use them interchangeably, but they're both the same thing as far as like requesting information from you guys to kind of help us tailor our acquisition strategy. But depending on what type of procurement you're doing, commercial, non-commercial, that kind of dictates what we call it, either a sources sought or an RFI, but they are the same thing.
And you absolutely do want to respond, because one of the things that they use that for is market research. So if we don't have small businesses that are responding to those, then they're going to say there are no small businesses to set it aside for. So you should absolutely.
Yeah, because she's
respond.
correct. Under FAR Part 19, we're required to set aside all acquisitions under the simplified acquisition threshold, which is $250,000 aside for small businesses. But the test to pass is we have to have 2 or more responsible small businesses that can do the work. We post these RFIs or sources sought to fill the marketplace to see if there's 2 or more small businesses that can do it. Based on that, if we get positive responses, we set it aside. If we don't, we have to go to her office and request to allow for full and open competition. That means now you guys would be put into a pool with not just small businesses, but would have to also compete against large businesses as well. And that the RFI sources sought helps us kind of develop the acquisition strategy, whether we're going small business set aside or it's full and open competition. So it is very important to respond, because when we do get two or more small businesses, it makes the pool smaller, so you're not competing with larger companies. That's a question.
So maybe you could speak to like some scientists within the Army or subject matter experts, but at the moment you can't really think of like a specific application for it. Or do you guys solely look for things that can eventually that has like a direct link to becoming some useful technology, not indirect?
So that's interesting if you're going to turn the laws of physics on its head. So that's, of course, noteworthy into the S&T community. So from an Army point of view, I would say if you don't have another point of contact, I would take that and I would integrate in with our Army Chief Scientist and also with the Army Research Office.
I would tell you too that we're kind of on two sides of the table. They're on the acquisition side and we're on the R&D side. So they have services or to acquire something, and we have the authorities to do research agreements. So we can't do an acquisition if we don't know what the answer is going to be. So otherwise we would just work with contracting to get that service or that product or that technology. So that would be a great way to do a CRADA with someone doing similar research in one of our laboratories.
This is a question for the procurement side of the world. So it seems like we have R&D. I'm with Seth with the Orion Group, and then we have a procurement side of the world. Is there an individual contact that each of us can work with to come up with a procurement strategy? We go to FedBizOps, you can do the sources sought, but it's really aligning, a strategy on how to navigate through the maze of the system, right? Are there individuals in the offices that we can work with and align ourselves with, or?
PTAC.
So, sorry, I'm thinking through your question, just making sure I'm giving you the best answer, because we, the procurement, will typically become involved when there's a requirement, and that requirement usually comes from the scientist or what we call the technical point of contact, or COR, depending on contracting officer representative, depending on how big that contract is. So I think I talked about this earlier, like industry days and things of that sort is like their way of kind of like reaching out to you guys to see what's out there, what are they interested in. Once they see a technology or something that they're interested in, they come to us like, hey, we have this company, they're doing something amazing that's going to help advance the research I'm doing. How do I go about in making this happen? And that's when we take on like, oh, okay, well, they're a small business or they're a 8A vendor. These are the type of strategies we can utilize to get you the technology that you're looking for. But typically, the person who's requiring the technology, that scientist, I guess, opens a dialogue and reaches out to us, and that's when we start to formulate a strategy as to how to go about in fulfilling that requirement.
And so, how do we get a list of all the current strategies? So, in other words, day one, right now, you must have hundreds that are in process, right, in that system, or is there a way we can get aligned with that?
So typically, they don't give out what their strategy is, but if you need some assistance in putting together your proposal, or you're just not really sure and you need some help, I would recommend a local PTAC, which stands for Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, and they can help you develop your strategy and put your proposals together to bid on whatever's out there that you're interested in.
And those are listed in the book? The
I
PTAC's
don't know
offices?
if, I don't think they're in the book. Yeah.
So I would get that through you?
Sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Another thing you can do is to download the mission areas within each laboratory. It might give you, or the strategy for defense, or the strategy for the Arctic or whatever, and that might give you some ideas of what, they won't give you the details you're looking for, but it'll give you the mission areas that might support that area.
Well, and that's kind of what's interesting is I hear about a lot of, well, this just happened, or this just closed, and so it's how do you get ahead of the ball,
right?
And so we have some very predefined areas of expertise. It would be nice to know all of the cybers, all of the different acronyms that are in AI and communications. And so that seems to be a difficult part, is you hear about a lot of things after the fact. And so there's no one repository to get ahead of the ball in that way, or?
Yeah, I mean, we post everything on FedBizOps, but like you said, it's a lot of information to go through and just kind of take in. But someone said it earlier, like you can register for to get emails from FedBizOps. So if there's any technology areas you're interested in, it'll send you an email like, hey, this is going on. Here's an industry day. Like we're having an AI or Maven industry day upcoming in November. That's pretty big. It'll email you about that, and then you can go ahead and register and see what's going on there. But everything we do as far as industry days or requirements, it's all posted on FedBizOps.
The DoD Small Business website also lists what they call one-to-N, and it's things that the commands are sometimes will publish to say these are things that we're going to be buying this year. So if you go to the DoD Small Business website, there's something called a one-to-N list, which will tell you some of the things that they're out there looking for. And to answer your question, COR stands for Contracting Officer Representative. So the contracting officer can't do everything, so they have representatives that are not allowed to change the terms and conditions of the contract, but they work with the contracting officer on the administrative side of the contract.
Kind of whispered that. What's a COR?
Yeah, I heard it.
So the question may be applicable to the panelists, but also for the X-Tech search organizers. They did a fantastic job in this entire program, and we are very happy about it. We are grateful for the opportunity. My question is, yesterday at one of the happy hours organized by the X-Tech search folks, we met two gentlemen who, one of them was a retired personnel from DHS, Department of Homeland Security, and another person was there, he does business with the Army, and he was there just to pay it forward, sharing his knowledge, right? And just in 5-10 minute conversation, he started rattling off, he understood our business, what we were doing, and then he started rattling off organizations within the Army. For example, he said, you know, PEO, STRI, PA, Program Mission Command,
Yes,
you need to talk to them, or Command Post of the Future, SoftWorks, C5 ISR. These are all organizations within the organization. So my question is, for the finalists or semi-finalists that are here, can we get a customized cheat sheet, or here is 10 organizations just customized for each of us, because you know, it's only 24, right? So can we get that? But that would be a huge thing, because for each of us, we have different needs. The Army has different needs, and how do we sync up, right? So even a cheat sheet would be so much helpful, just to know these organizations in the Army, for customized to all of us. That'll be awesome, regardless of we make it to the final or not. You know.
So Army Small Business is here at AUSA, and they have matchmaking events. And in the matchmaking, you have a small business professional from all of our buying commands that are here. So my suggestion would be to wander over there and see if you can get a business card from all of those buying commands. And if you'll see me after this, I can give you the small business professional for each of those buying commands.
So from my point of view, if you are an X-Tech Search 3 cycle participants, the down-selected winners that are announced today, one of the new enhancements to the program is that there's the addition of a tech accelerator that is going to work with the winners to increase the likelihood of success. So through X-Tech, we started the program, you know, a year and a half ago, and we continue to integrate things that we think are better, that the company needs, how we communicate, how we do events, and the like. And so I'm calling out this gentleman here, because is he going to give you a customized list if you're a winner? It's not going to be that. Are you going to be better supported? I think so. Is that fair?
And Will, can you describe your role to X-Tech Search?
Yeah, so I'm Will Dixon. I work for FedTech, and we help commercialize tough tech for DoD stakeholders. We're running an X-Tech accelerator for the 12 down selected winners. So I think a bunch of you friendly faces have introduced it, but like Wendy said, kind of an additional resource for the 12 down selected winners, along with some other resources for all participants to help you be more successful.
What I hope you take away from that is that we're listening and we're also learning, and so we're trying to put those improvements in play so that, again, these innovations and discoveries result into technologies that mature and then get into the hands of the warfighter. And so we're learning as we go, and we're trying to improve as we go. So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and take it upon myself to wrap up the panel. But again, there's these assets. So again, Nell will be around that can talk more the requirement side. So from the contracting small business side, from the tech transfer side, from open campus to some contacts with the tech accelerators. We're going to be around. My broken record says I can't let you leave again without saying you need these in your briefcase, take these home. Keep them on the coffee table at home and at your work table. I really do like this document. Amongst ourselves, we've talked about it again. We see that there's some other authorities that we think we should add. It's something that we're going to continue to improve. But again, I think it's an excellent resource. So the next open campus, open house will be in Adelphi, Maryland, which is just outside of DC. So not far, if you're familiar with the Baltimore, Washington area, it's not far from University of Maryland College Park, about 5 minutes from there. And so again, I'm going to take the list from every X-Tech search competition and then invite everyone to participate, because again, I like it when researchers talk to researchers because that makes me excited. Any parting thoughts?
No, I think you covered it.
Thank you all for coming.